In this video, we are going to go through on how to take your newly created layout, cut it out, and create your box. The easiest thing to start off with is if you have some sort of a sharp pointed object. This is called a scribe, and this has a very sharp point on the end, and this is what we utilize for transferring over any dimensions and layouts to our sheet metal. It also works really nice on your paper to create a recess in the paper and just to make it a very small cut to make it easier to bend later on. So what we're going to do quickly, and this is again doesn't have to happen, but it does make it a lot easier when we're folding. So we're first going to go through, and any of these lines that we have here that are main bends, which is going to be, this is a bend line, this is a main bend line, same with this one, and this, and your hems. You're not going to do anything with these because we're cutting that whole section out. So first we're going to go through and we're going to do the hem right here. We're going to do the hem line, and we're just going to push lightly. We're not trying to cut all the way through. We're just trying to create a little groove. It kind of acts like a perforation on a piece of paper. Just something that makes it scores the paper a little bit and makes it easier to bend and a lot more accurate. Then you're going to take it, turn it, and do the exact same thing for the other lines. I'm not pushing down hard. If you're not sure how hard to push, take a piece of scrap paper and try it out on that before you start working on something that you really need. It is very easy to push too hard and cut right through the paper. We don't want that. The next part of this is going to be to simply cut out all of your parts. And you're going to start out by just removing the easy stuff. So we're going to cut off the hem here, and we're going to go through, cut that out. We're just going to keep following it around, taking our time. Again, this is just a prototype. This is just to make sure that all of our parts easily come together and are done appropriately. This way, before we get to our sheet metal, if there's any issues, we can correct those. If you have too much on the one side, you do have to cut that off. Again, we're going for accuracy. After that's done, you can go through and cut out all this extra stuff in here so that you're left with your tabs. Now be careful when you're coming up into your corner here, because you don't want to cut into the box. You want to cut all the way up to that point and then stop. If you cut too far, you will have a cut and slice on the bottom of your box. Take your time with this part, because if your box prototype does not come together properly, you're going to have to redo that until you've gotten it correct so that you can move on to the next step, which would be doing this on sheet metal. that's what you're looking for. At this point, you can take all of your scraps, throw them away. Not going to need those anymore. The next part is going to be taking this layout, and now that it's all scribed and it has all the marks made into it, and we're going to bend it, and we're going to try and do that in the same order that we would do this on our brake, because again, this is to make sure that this is going to go together the way we think it's going to. Now, ultimately, when we do this, and we've done it on paper, because we scored the lines on this side, we are going to have to bend it on the opposite side upwards. When we're doing this on metal, it will be bent up towards the lines on our box and pan brakes. However, because this is our prototype and because of the way we have to do this to make it more accurate, we are going to do it in opposite order. So, first thing would be that your brake comes down and ends up sitting down on the line, and then it bends it upwards so that you would hit all of these at the same time. So that means it's very important that you always bend your tab sides first, because those three things will bend at the same time. If you do not, and you bend up the other side first, it'll be very difficult to properly bend your tabs with a nice crisp, clean corner. So that's what we're going to start off with, is that we're going to start by creating our bends on our side with the tabs. Now, the reason that we did the scribe mark on our paper is because it makes it very simple. All you have to do is fold it up a little bit, and it will find that score, and it will make it super simple so that you don't have to try and be super accurate about where you are pushing down. It automatically finds that scoring, because that's the weakest part. And then we can do the same thing over to the other side. Again, you just bring it up. It should automatically find that, and you'll hear it kind of crack a little bit, and that's all we want. We're also going to do the hems on all four sides. Which would ultimately be done first with a different machine, and we can show you that later. So now you have this. After all your tabs and your hems have been folded in, now you can take this and move it to the other side here, and you're going to get that folded in. Obviously, we're folding this a lot farther than you would with your metal, so that's because it is paper and we're trying to create creases to make it so it stands up. Once you have all that, you'll have your box. Now, with sheet metal, we always use what is called a spot welder, a resistance spot welder. And what that does is it fuses the metal together. Instead of adding something on the edge or trying to weld the edge, it takes two pieces of sheet metal and sends electricity through it to heat it up and allows it to melt together in points. That's what's used for most toolboxes, pan brakes, gas tanks, anything else that utilizes sheet metal that you're putting in together. And the two most commonly used methods is using the spot welder or utilizing rivets. So, what we're going to utilize in order to simulate that is just normal stick glue, because we're not using tape, because we're not trying to use outside forces to hold it together. Put a little bit of glue on the tab, and then you're going to line up your corner as well as you can so that it comes together. You want it to be nice and tight and straight up and down. And then you can do the other one. A little bit of glue. Don't try and put a ton on there, otherwise it'll take a lot of time to dry. Take it apart. Go to the other side. And you're going to want to push down on it so that it creates a good little bond there. And if it doesn't want to, then just put a little bit more on. Put a little bit on the other side so it creates more of a contact cement type of bond. Sometimes paper can be a little bit finicky when it comes to glue. I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Now ultimately I didn't glue down the hems. You are more than welcome to, but in all actuality those don't get welded down, so I didn't. Now when you're done, you're looking for is all of these corners right here. You want the corners to line up perfectly with each other so that there's nothing's higher than or lower than the other one. That's what you're looking for. And the reason that we did our angles on the tabs is now easily seen. So if you look at the hem and the tab, you can see that they have an angle on both of them, which allows them to be up next to each other but without interfering with each other. This is the reason that we utilize the 45-degree angle on all of our hems and tabs. It's so that they can fit together, not interfere with each other, and be good to go. If we didn't put it on our hems, what would happen is it would force the sides to actually stick out because it's going to be interfering with that tab. We don't want that. We want nice, crisp, clean corners where everything meets perfectly flush and the same height. This is the end of this part. After this, you would be going through and taking the dimensions again and putting it onto sheet metal the same way, utilizing your scribe and your ruler as your two main utensils. Your scribe would be the same thing as we did with the pencil, and you'd scribe onto the metal. Once you're completed with that, you would be utilizing what's called aviation snips to cut it out instead of the scissors.